It's all about the macro productions.
What does the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Look, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dave on NBC.
Jack Marius Tactheratrix.
Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Jackson, Sacramento, he, him.
Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Muammar Gaddafi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Swangles in Fort Lauderdale.
I have sent 6 of my Libyan missiles to blow up the Sears hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than jumping off a cliff with 2 German bisexuals.
Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now, macroaggressions.
That's what assholes call it.
With your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat?
You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault.
He was a retard.
I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to Macroaggressions. I'm your host, Charlie Robinson. If you're watching us on Rockfin, Rumble, Band.video, now YouTube, or you are listening wherever podcasts are served, thanks a million. We appreciate your amazing support over the years. Macroaggressions.io is the website that you can go to find out everything that we're working on. Pick up some of the audiobooks. The Octopus of Global Control is 23 and a half hours of audiobook deliciousness for you. You can check that out wherever audiobooks are available. If you want to find me on social media, I'm on X, where I argue with robots, at Macroaggressions. And you can also find me on, I don't know. I think we're on Instagram, but I never go there. Anyway, we appreciate our sponsors. My God, they help to keep this show going, and we couldn't do it without them. Have you guys, did you catch the episode that we did with Michael Lush, the founder of Replace Your Mortgage? If you are a homeowner and you have good credit and you have a little bit of equity in your home, you can actually flip things into your favor. You can pay off your mortgage in between 5 and 7 years. It's not like a magic potion or anything like that. You just have to figure out what program you need to be in. You're in the wrong program. If you're in a mortgage, you're in a wrong program. And you can refi and you can recast, and it's none of these things, okay? It's something else beyond that. So, I think the best thing for you to do is watch the video that is associated with it. You can go to the website that's created specifically for this show, wipeoutyourmortgagenow.com. Wipeoutyourmortgagenow.com. Watch that video. It's like 23 minutes. And then after that, if you have questions, you can contact the people over there. I mean, this is a bank killer. This is one of the reasons why I love this. If everybody was doing this, the banks would cease to exist. And of course, we love that. So if you're interested or you're just curious, go to wipeoutyourmortgagenow.com and watch that video and check it out for yourself. Also, to anybody who's thinking about getting themselves, healthier, chemicalfreebody.com is a good place to start. chemicalfreebody.com/macro will have the discount already built into it. I've been talking about them for years. If you're unfamiliar with their products, get over there and check it out. They have a variety of things. It's not just it's Green 85 is their staple. And if you're taking Green 85 every day, you're on the right path. But they have the detox in a box, they have the parasite cleanse, and they have the water hero system, which is structured water into your house. I've got one of the devices. They're not cheap, right? But you don't need to buy new filters for it. There's no filter, right? So you can, theoretically, you can use it forever. I don't know how long it's going to last, but you might want to check it out. Go to chemicalfreebody.com/macro and just check out the water heroes specifically and check. You can get them installed on your house so that all the water in your house is structured water, or you can get this little device. It's kind of like a filter, but it's not actually a filter. And you can just keep yourself a pitcher of water. It structures the water, it turns it into H3O2. So it's something totally different. It's the cleanest water out there. So if you're interested, you're not going to get a hard sell from me on this stuff, but I'll tell you, I use it. I personally use all the products at Chemical Free Body. I've got all of them, I think, at this point. So if you're interested, it's a good place to start. All right, well, let's get into the meat of this. It's been a weird time to be paying attention. Have you been noticing? Now, noticing is a word that the ADL is now mad about. They're mad about noticing. Can't notice? Well, I noticed it was sunny outside. Are you going to arrest me for that? Oh, no. You are upset because the term noticing means that people are starting to notice the undue influence of our most trusted ally in the Middle East. And people are starting to ask questions about that. Hey, do we need this most trusted ally in the Middle East to set our foreign policy? To set our domestic policy? No, I don't think so. But it doesn't really matter because this is part of a much bigger play. So what I want to do today is I want to get into a little bit. I'm not going to get too much into the history of it all because we don't need to re-examine the Roman Empire. If we were going to do that, have Jeremy Ryan Slate on to get into that because he's an expert on that. But we're not going to talk about Pax Romana. You've heard of it, right? This was when the Roman Empire, peace in the Roman Empire. Well, maybe. If you got on the wrong side of the Roman Empire, there was no peace. But peace through strength, right? We dominate this region. We have the Roman Empire, and it can be peaceful or it can be violent. You choose. If you want to fight us, it will be violent for you. If you want it to be peaceful, for those who are living inside the Roman Empire, essentially, your experience can be very different. It could be peaceful. And it's funny because you think about the experience right now for people who are Americans in the American Empire. Is the American Empire a force for good? No. If you live inside the American Empire, can you be protected and treated well? That's the sales pitch, is that you'll be treated well and protected by the empire. Of course, ultimately, no. I think for the simpletons out there, they'll say, yeah, we'd be protected from our, as long as we're part of the empire, nobody's going to get us. Until the empire falls apart. And they do. And they always do. And so when Berwick and I write The Controlled Demolition of the American Empire, it's not a stretch. It's not like we're going out on a really flimsy limb and saying, I think this empire stuff is a problem. Clearly it is. The question is, where does it end? What ultimately happens inside the empire to deteriorate it to the point where it falls apart? Because if you were living in the Roman Empire in the heyday, you felt indestructible. That theoretically could have gone on forever with them. It did. It lasted quite a while. I mean, to their credit, they kept it going for longer than the American Empire will keep it going. But the premise that it will never stop or it'll never change or it's that, I think, is maybe delusional thinking, wishful thinking. Because empires come to an end, especially when they're fueled by their own arrogance and stupidity and greed, and they get themselves into situations where their arrogance writes checks that their bodies can't cash, right? So I think we're there with the American Empire. I think that this isn't really. Again, it's not a major stretch to say that things are falling apart for the American Empire. But I want to talk a little bit about some of these stages that we're going through. And I think that when we look back at history and we understand where where things have been in the past, not to say that history repeats, but it does give you a blueprint to follow. It gives you at least something to take a look at and say, well, this happened to them in the past. Could it happen to us, right? So you think about the three stages, really all tied to world wars, right? Pax Britannica, right? This is the Great Britain. I'd say this is before World War I. This was the before, a little bit before, and a lot before, and a little bit after World War I. It's the era of naval dominance. This is when the sun never set on the British Empire. This was colonizing. This was the British East India Company. It was the era of British domination. And you see it worldwide in the colonies. You see it through their conquest of Canada and Australia, the hybrid countries that are in the Caribbean that are under the British, thumb. And this had gone on for centuries, really, for like maybe 2 good centuries, with the British East India Company in the mid 1700s and how they dominated and took over India and really, like, we've done shows on the British East India Company. It was 1,000 times bigger than Amazon with its own private army, which is crazy, right? So, but that era, when you're in it, it seems like it'll never end. Like the music will never stop. The party will never come to a close, but it does. And usually what happens is that these empires overextend themselves financially. They become arrogant and convinced that they're indestructible. They continue to behave in... They draw in some of the worst people imaginable, of course, to continue the reign of terror. And ultimately, it's destroyed by its own hubris. And things change, right? Throughout the world, things change. And so especially when you're riding into a world war, and then what happens during the war, and then the aftermath of that, and how things get changed. So you start with Pax Britannica, and you eventually move after World War II into a new era, Pax Americana. And that's post-World War II era. This is when, look, Europe is in smoldering ruins, right? Russia has been pulverized. They've lost how many 30 million men in World War II at least. God knows whatever they lost earlier than that in the Bolshevik Revolution. It's been a catastrophe, right? Asia is not much better. Japan is on fire. They've destroyed the eastern side of China. They've slaughtered the Koreans. They've enslaved the Filipinos. They're out of their fucking minds, right? They've been crazy. The Japanese took control of that, right? But then in the aftermath of World War II, that all went away. Japan's, I don't know if you would call it a constitution, whatever it is, their driving document that guides their country was rewritten to prevent them from joining future wars. So they had a come to Jesus moment in the aftermath of World War II and said, "Oh, we got to do things differently." So if you've noticed, they have been less aggressive in the second half of the 20th century, and it served them well, of course. And if you've ever been to Japan, you see it's a hidden jewel, right? You see this. America's great because we're a melting pot. Take that shit somewhere else, man. Go to Japan. They're a homogenous culture. You know why? Because they're fucking awesome. And they don't want less than awesome people in there. And it's a high trust society, and things run well. And they know what happens when they bring in, I don't know, they saw what happened in Western Europe and America when you bring in 25 million fourth world knuckle dragging retards into your country. It doesn't get better. So things have changed, and we moved in the aftermath of World War II. America was not in smoldering ruins. It was fine. It was more than fine. In fact, it had, as a sort of trade, as a enticement to jump into World War II. Now, that the story that Americans are told is that America came into the war of its own accord, and they were happy to do so and save the day and stomp out the Krauts and get the Japs and drop the bombs and restore order to them. I mean, the whole fucking story is bullshit, right? It's none of that. The reason why the United States got into the war on the side of Britain was because they said to them, we'll do this, but you've got to give us like all the blueprints to all your stuff, all your weapon, your tanks and planes and this and that, so that we can help build them here. But we just stole that information. And you got to, in the aftermath of this, you've got to do things our way. We'll come in here, we'll parachute into the final year and a half of the war and help you mop it up. Well, the truth be told, that the Russians were doing the mopping. I mean, the Russians were destroying the Germans in the East, and they were working their way to America wrapped the war up in Europe maybe, I don't know, 6 months earlier than it would have normally been. I don't know about Japan. That's a different story. But they were well, no, it's really not a different story. Japan was surrendering. They would have been done without us dropping the bombs on it. So in the aftermath of World War II, world's reserve currency moves to the dollar. Petrodollar arrangement happens in the early 70s. The CIA is created in the late 40s to manage this whole process of lying and everything. And we move into the era of Pax Americana. And I would say that it stayed that way. Well, look, a lot of people will argue with you if this were a topic that actually came up for debate. A case could be made, pretty good one, that we are still in Pax Americana. But I would say the only people making that case are normies who watch Fox News and don't understand the real play. Because we are in a different era, and we have been in that era since the morning of September 11th, 2001. We're now in the era of Jewish dominance, which is called Pax Judaica. This started in 9/11, and it extends to this day. Now, I think a debate could be had, and I don't know that I would put up a huge fight against this, to say that Pax Judaica actually started the day that JFK was killed. And I think that, I'm going to say no to that, only because I don't think people realized it until much later, that Israel was involved in the killing of Kennedy. Corey Hughes knew it. He wrote a book, A Warning from History, which I wrote the foreword to, which predated all this stuff. And everyone's like, I think the Jews were involved in killing Kennedy. Corey wrote the book about it before anyone was talking about it and brought all the documents. And again, I don't know that that's a huge argument to have, that Pax Judaica started the day that they killed Kennedy. I mean, in retrospect, probably from the Israeli standpoint of things, it probably did, because they knew they were involved in it. The American general public had no idea. Still doesn't, frankly, to this point. They still think Lee Harvey Oswald got lucky with some shots and Jack Ruby took him out. They don't know that Jack Ruby's real name is Jack Rubenstein. They don't understand the whole plot. They just know what we were told. But I'm going to say that on the morning of September 11th, Israel took control. And to be clear, 9/11 was a hybrid of the United States and Israel. It wasn't simply Israel. It was run by Laser Kell. It was a hybrid of the PNAC Zionists inside the Bush White House, mixed with the old H.W. Bush-ites from the 80s who recirculated back in, the Cheneys, Rumsfelds of the world, who were watching, who had a role in this too. So it's not to say that it's only Israel that did 9/11. And we've got plenty of problems with the official story, and they made a lot of mistakes, and Building 7 came down in free fall speed when it wasn't hit by a plane, and there's a lot of problems with that. But if we're being completely honest, they pulled it off. They pulled it off. Because it doesn't really matter if you figure it out 25 years later, because the point of 9/11 wasn't, if it was just to scare Americans and fuck with us, that would be one thing. But that's not what it was about. You have to kind of work backwards. We're getting into a war in the Middle East to take out 7 countries in 5 years. How do we make that happen? How do we work backwards to make that happen? 9/11 is how you do that, right? You have the new Pearl Harbor as drafted by these lunatics in September of 2000, preparing for rebuilding our defenses, rebuilding America's defenses. The document that was written by the PNAC Zionists a year before 9/11, in which they said that they, absent a catalyzing catastrophic event like a new Pearl Harbor. Well, of course, they got their new Pearl Harbor a year later. And I think that for anybody who works inside the intelligence apparatus inside America, who's at a high level, not a low-level guy who still thinks that 19 Arab hijackers with box cutters were involved in this, but I'm talking about the people who know what the fuck is going on. To them, Israel took control that day. And I think that people need to be honest about that. And once you are, and once I lay this out as to where we're going with this, I think that I think it's undeniable. Right? The baton was passed on 9/11. They didn't wake everybody up and tell everybody what was happening. That's up to you to figure it out. Most people still don't even know what's happening. They're with the official story. But for those with the eyes to see it, things changed. And This is all, now we get into some weird territory here, because it's not just that you're dealing with your country versus another country. Now you've got your country plus Israel, which brings their entire religious leanings into this. And they're starting to talk about, well, what actually has to happen for prophecy is that we've got to destroy this part. Everything needs to be destroyed. And then we need to build the third temple. And then, and then we've got to sacrifice the red cow to Baal, I guess, or Moloch, or whoever it is. Or I don't know. Perhaps the Antichrist will appear at some point, if it isn't already Jared Kushner, but they are intent on doing the things that need to happen in their magic book in order to make that. So it's not like, when's this new era starting? We read it in our magic book that we've got to have, we've got to rebuild the third temple and all this, and we need to, we need to appeal to, we need to hurry this up, basically. So you're dealing with people that are dragging a crazy religion into this, and it's a crazy religion. Let's be honest here. Have you seen the guy? Have you seen how they'll grab a chicken and they'll put all their sins into a chicken, and then they beat the chicken to death, and then now they're good? And this is a culture that is hell bent on deceiving God, deceiving their God. They've got wires strung up all around New York City. They hire Shabbos Goy, whiteys, non-Jews, to come in and flip the light switches on and do all the things. They're constantly trying to negotiate and fuck with their God. It's a crazy religion. Let's just be honest. It is. You can believe whatever you want. But if you believe that you put your sins into a chicken and then you kill the chicken, I hope you go to chicken hell. I hope you personally, when you die, you wake up and you go, holy shit, I've gone to the wrong hell. I'm in chicken hell. I hope you guys go to chicken hell, you fucking weirdos. With your crazy magical thinking, right? So you want to come in here and your book tells you that we've got to destroy everything. We have to make everybody hate us, and then we can build the third temple. Well, you're well on your way. You certainly have everybody hating you. I don't know if you're going to destroy. I don't know what the fuck you guys are trying to do. But you do. Israel has become the center of gravity in both Western and Middle Eastern politics. That's undeniable, okay? You can't get away from it. They make enemies everywhere they go, but they are also measurably psychotic. So most people in the countries are terrified of them. They recognize, there's an old Jewish trope, 109 countries. We've been thrown out of 109 countries. If I got thrown out of 109 bars, would it be the bar's problem, or would it be maybe my behavior? Maybe when I go to the bar, I get out of control and they throw me out. Who's the common denominator here? What is the common denominator here, right? So they are ruthless operators and pathological liars of staggering proportions, the ones that infiltrate into these countries. And I mean, well, listen, pathological liars of staggering proportions, they lied about the Holocaust for 75 years. They lied and said that people were turned into lampshades and bars of soap. None of that happened. This is all delusional thinking. It's a lie. And it's done to make you feel guilty for some perceived injustice that was committed 1,000,000 years ago by people who you don't know against people who you don't give a fuck about. And I'm supposed to feel sorry for this? I just don't. First of all, the story's a lie. It's been disproven. It was disproven by the Red Cross in 1991, right? So I'm already coming into this not believing anything this group says, but it's going to get a hell of a lot worse, okay? And so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about Zionism. I want to talk about the Greater Israel Project. I want to talk about the technocracy that they have planned for Pax Judaica, because it's fucking awful. It's awful. And we'll wrap up with, digital Noahide laws. How about that? Set your mind at ease for that. The world, when you look at it, still looks American. But that's the Uncle Sam skin suit that Israel has been wearing for the last 70 years. The Israeli skin suit comes out in the aftermath of 9/11, right? Where really, I mean, since it really all kind of started on I'd say on about 5:25 on the afternoon of September 11th, 2001, when World Trade Center dropped into its own footprint at free fall speed, and the entire mainstream media turned its back and pretended like it didn't happen. That's when you knew they took control. To me, the events of 9/11 were crazy and chaotic, but that final piece, when you can convince people that a 47-story glass and steel high-rise building, which would have been the largest building collapse in American history had it been just on the west of the Mississippi, nobody knows about it in the United States. People don't know that Building 7 came down. Richard Gage, with his Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, did a fantastic mobile billboard campaign around New York City and other big major cities that said, "Did you know a third building fell on 9/11? Because most people don't know that. But the PNAC Zionists took control of the USA full control on 9/11, and launched 7 countries in 5 years under the flag of the United States. But these wars, the Afghanistan war, the Iraq war, whatever you want to call what we did to Syria and Libya, wasn't a war, it was just a straight bombing campaign. The current Iran wars, these are all being fought to benefit one group and one group only, Israel. It doesn't benefit the American empire. Sure, the arms companies make a ton of money. And the multinational engineering firms, the Halliburtons and the Bechtels of the world, get massive government contracts to go in there and rebuild the areas that have been destroyed. So we've got, like, at best, a broken window economics fallacy going on here. We'll increase the American GDP because we'll be doing all this rebuilding of all these countries that we bombed to smithereens. That's not growth. That's bullshit. That's how politicians and statisticians and accountants and liars get together and convince you that everything's fine. It's undeniable that these wars only benefit Israel. How could bombing Syria benefit America? Give me a couple good reasons. I mean, tell me why. If we have to spend all this money, how could turning Libya into an open-air slave trading market when it went from the most prosperous country in all of Africa? Muammar Gaddafi gets a bad rep, and of course he's in the intro to my podcast, so he's forever linked to me. But if you read the things that Muammar Gaddafi was doing for his people, you'd be like, I want to move to Libya. It's the only government in the world that was actually taking care of its people. They had crazy incentives. You want to get married and have a family, and here, you want to go to college? We'll pay for it. You having a kid? Here, we'll give you a little something here to start. I mean, can't have that. Can't have that. Hillary Clinton made sure of that, right? So potential enemies of Israel, they don't face threats from Tel Aviv. They face threats from Washington, D.C. You see, you get on the wrong side of Israel, and they just have their big brother, America, go straighten you out. That at least that's how it's been. America has been the attack dog of the devious Zionists, the dual citizenship Zionists in that administration. But recently the Uncle Sam costume is trying to start World War III, and frankly, to borrow a line from Fred Sanford, this may be the big one, Elizabeth. I mean, this really may be. And I'm not trying to make light of World War III because it's super serious. But you see, we have been told for a long, long time that the Israelis, we've been told that the Israelis don't have nuclear weapons, but we know that they do. And we also know that they have something called the Samson option, which is if they're losing the war, they're going to just launch nuclear missiles at everybody that they can and take everybody down. And if you think about that from a cultural standpoint. This is really a shit group of people. This is the equivalent of like, I'm just taking my ball and going home. Except in this case, I'm taking my ball, going home, and murdering everybody that was on the field. That didn't like the way I was playing, didn't let me win. I was trying to score a goal, you wouldn't let me score because you suck. And so now I'm taking my ball, I'm going home, but then I'm going to have daddy murder all of you. That's Israel and America, right? So let's talk a little bit about Zionism. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. I'm a proud Zionist and stand proud of it. Joe Biden, whatever the fuck he said. Yeah, so again, this isn't a religious designation. You can hide behind it or you can use it and throw it at people if you want to say, you're making fun of my religion. Zionism is not a religious designation. It's a political one. It's a political affiliation, right? And it is, and you don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist. And in fact, Israel First loyalists have basically infiltrated Congress and beyond. And so it's hard to tell now. You've got a lot of people in the halls of Congress who are American, Christian, maybe Catholic, I don't know. But they stand with Israel, and they have to stand with Israel. Because if you don't stand with Israel, they'll stand on you, on your throat. Ask Dr. Cynthia McKinney. She knows a thing or two about that. But the Israel First loyalists are everywhere in Congress. You can find like Brian Mast. Have you seen that? The legless guy from who wears his Israeli IDF uniform in the halls of Congress, he should be taken away in handcuffs immediately. He should also be made fun of for having no legs. But that's just me, because I'm petty like that. I would fuck with that guy relentlessly. I would love to debate him. I'm actually not much of a debater. It wouldn't even be a debate. It'd just be me calling him every name in the book. Like, sir, this is not a debate. It's just you yelling. I don't know. That's how I would do it. But you know, whether you're a American citizen who loves Christianity and puts his hand over his heart and goes to church every Sunday, it doesn't matter. Because if you're working in Congress, you are there you have a clear mission. Your mission is to put Israel first in everything you do. And if you don't do that, they will put someone in office who will. And if you speak out about their undue influence, they'll primary you and disappear you. Madison Cawthorn talked about the parties. Remember him? Remember the guy in Congress in the wheelchair? Good-looking guy. You don't see him anymore, do you? No, he talked about the parties. See, you can't do that. So, you again, don't take my word for it. You can watch Benjamin Netanyahu on the hidden camera video from, 25 years ago. He's in a apartment condo someplace in Tel Aviv. He's talking to some people. And he says, and it says it's a hidden camera. Like he doesn't know that it's there. It's filming it. Not that he wouldn't say this in front of a bank of microphones as well, but he said, quote, America is something that is easily moved. And unfortunately, he's correct. And the reason why he's correct is because he's been moving America. It is easily moved. When you have the right leverage, Archimedes, right? Give me a lever and I can move the world, right? Give me Epstein blackmail information and I can move the world. Benjamin Archimedes Netanyahu. Right? So you've got a problem, right? America is something that's easily moved, right? But then you get the spiritual side of this, which I think is the monkey wrench that throws everything off. It's that this group of people, and again, I'm not trying to say that all Jewish people believe this, because you can't do that. The group that is in office right now, that is being controlled by Israel, they believe that it is their destiny to rule over humanity. Not my words. It's their words. The Chabad Lubavitch Grand Wizard Rebbe. Remember, have you seen that guy? You can find some footage, again, back with interviews with Netanyahu speaking with him. And this is, I think, in the early 90s. And it's on camera. And he told him that he wasn't doing the little Rebbe guy. Rebbe's the guy, you see the paintings of the Chabad Lubavitch guys with the black hats, and there's a guy with a long gray beard. That's this guy, right? And he's dead now. But and I don't know if he died of embarrassment for believing this his entire life, but whatever. I mean, that's on him. But he what he said to Netanyahu was that he wasn't doing enough to hasten the return of the Messiah. He was telling Netanyahu, we're working. Netanyahu was saying, we're working on it. He said, well, you're not working on it fast enough because I haven't seen the Messiah today. So you need to do more. You need to do more to hasten the return of the Messiah. I ask you a question. How do you negotiate with this? How do you deal with this? How do you sit down in a meeting and say, we're trying to come to terms with this Iran-Israel war. We'd like to for the war to stop. And this guy goes, yeah, but the imaginary man in the sky said that I need to hasten the return of the Messiah. And since the Messiah is not here yet, I still have work to do. So with all due respect to this peace negotiation, fuck off. My God hasn't come back yet. So, so good luck dealing with that. It was like, well, we had negotiated a potential peace with the Israelis. Really? You did? Do they still think that their guy is coming back? And that, because if they think that, then you haven't negotiated with any. They are delusional, which is fine if you're just on an island by yourself. But the problem is they have nuclear missiles, or maybe they don't. I don't know. But they're going to get us all killed. So their delusion and their insanity now becomes my problem. So I just wonder how you can't operate, you can't negotiate in good faith. First of all, you can't negotiate in good faith with the American empire or Israel at all. And when you did, as evidenced by what happened in Iran, they bomb you in the middle of negotiations because they know where you're going to be. They bomb the shit out of you. So you cannot deal with these people. Let's move on to Greater Israel Project. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's conspiracy analysis. The Greater Israel Project is a real thing. It's not made up. There are patches on the shoulders of the IDF that show a map of Greater Israel. If it was just Israel, they would show a map of Israel. They don't do that. They show a map of Greater Israel, which is a bigger piece of land, which encompasses Egypt and Lebanon and parts of Iraq and parts of Saudi Arabia, and you're in Syria, and you're in. It's an advertisement saying we're going to come steal all your land. It's like, hey, that map that you've got of Greater Israel is infringing on our land. It's like, oh, really? You don't say. So again, if you see the Greater Israel map and you're, I don't know, Egypt, you better put some fucking troops on the Sinai because they're coming for you. And if you get caught with your pants down and you didn't figure out that the Israelis were going to take your land after they telegraphed the entire thing, drew a map, put it on well, then that's on you. That is 100% on you. But the map that's in the video with Epstein talking to some kid. There's a picture. Well, it's not a video. It's a picture of he's talking to this kid, and the kid's face is blurred out. And there's a chalkboard behind him. And on the chalkboard behind him is drawn out with chalk, Greater Israel. So it's like it's not a secret. But the problem is they're saying this is historical destiny for a Jewish state. So now you start talking about destiny, and you're bringing gods into this, and and you're using the husk of the American empire to fight its wars for them, but maybe no more. There's not much left of the American empire, especially after what's gone on in the first couple of weeks of this war with Iran. I mean, the American empire's home bases in the Middle East are in ruins. They are smoldering. The chessboard is being reset, right? So you can deny what's happening. You can pretend that Israel isn't on a quest to steal all this land. You can pretend that this is going to be some sort of a war that wraps up in a couple of weeks. I just don't believe that. I think that this is what they've always wanted. They're finally at the point where they've got what they've always wanted. We've seen the timeshare sales pitch presentation for what they have planned for New Gaza. Vegas on the Riviera. Right? This is a dystopian hellscape that they have planned. I mean, on the ashes of hundreds of thousands of dead children and dead women, it's tough for me. As somebody who's worked in real estate for 30 years and has worked with a lot of developers, and you get that personality type that is a developer. They're one step away from being politicians. They're really just bullshit artists juggling money. Ultimately, they cut corners and fuck everybody. I mean, that's what happens. If you're a developer listening to this, then you know what I'm talking about. Don't get offended. You know what I'm talking about. And I've seen it, and I've been around the world. I've been to all these, the Worldwide Property Show in Hong Kong and Shanghai, and been to, and I know how to pitch a project. And I've seen it done the right way, and I've seen it done the wrong way. And the sales pitch for New Gaza, where they brought in the Board of Peace with $1 billion entrance fee, convinced all these countries to become a part of it, twisted their arm, more than likely. And then before the ink was dry, they started bombing the shit out of people. So it's like you signed everybody up for the peace plan and then started killing people almost immediately. This is how you know you're run by the Israelis, because this is how they think, right? The plans for New Gaza, New Rafah, and a new canal. They're out there. You don't have to speculate and make them up. You know, that Suez Canal the problem with it is it's controlled by the Egyptians. And it's usually not a problem unless, you've got a problem with the Egyptians. And if Greater Israel happens and you steal their land in the Sinai, they're not going to let you go through the canal. So you have to make your new canal. And where does that new canal go? It goes through Israel. And where does it come out? Well, it kind of comes out right where Gaza was. Starting to understand the picture? This was never an accident. This was never... this is part of a much bigger play that has offshore oil with plans for a pipeline that's run by Genie Energy, which is, look at the board of directors of Genie Energy if you want to see cast of characters. Well, it looks like the same group of people that were involved in 9/11. Right? So then the question is, you can have plans for all this, and you can do the sales pitch and make the brochures and do the videos and tell everybody what you were going to do. But how in the fuck are you going to achieve such an ambitious project? The answer is that you're going to have to blackmail the Americans into doing it for you. If you're going to have the Greater Israel Project, which by its own definition includes starting wars with all these countries around you, all your neighbors, the only way that's going to happen is if you use the American empire as your battering ram to do that. So that's what they do. They've blackmailed the American military, the American government into doing that for them, right? And this is how they achieve their ambitious projects, right? You kill Kennedy, you do 9/11, and you currently own the White House. So you do it by subversion. What is the Mossad's motto? By way of deception, thou shalt do war. So you're not going to just line up like the Revolutionary War with all the red coats on one side and everybody's in a line and like ready, fire, and then you got to reload your musket and all this stuff. That's not how it works anymore. They have nukes. At least we think they do. 150 of them. If the numbers are accurate, and they have threatened to use them if necessary, right? So it's America, the American empire, bombed Japan with atomic bombs, right? Nukes. And from that point forward, it's been a race to get nukes so that nobody drops them on you. Look at North Korea. Their quest to get nukes. Is this some sort of insane end game because they want to go out and destroy South Korea? No. They just want to make sure. They know that if they've got nukes, then they've got the potential to... They basically are like a porcupine. And it keeps everybody away from them, right? So it's like, well, I've got them. And so it's one thing to have them, but it's another thing is, will you use them, right? And I think with the American empire, I think maybe there's enough checks and balances that for the aftermath of post-World War II all the way up to 9/11, the idea of America using nukes again was pretty low. It felt pretty low. But if you have a crazy enough leader and you have nukes, then you have a problem. Because it's one thing to have a nuclear capabilities, and Joe Biden is the president. He's half dead, asleep at the wheel, right? But Donald Trump, who is like an unhinged maniac, it's hard to know what he's serious about, right? His rantings and ravings. He puts us a little bit closer to using them simply because he's such a wild card. That actually could be a benefit in the sense that you've got a leader who's a little bit unpredictable. All your enemies now have to kind of make that calculation as well. But when you have somebody like Benjamin Netanyahu, or really any of the high-ranking people in his administration, Yoav Gallant, Ben Gvir, Naftali Bennett, all dead, by the way. They're all dead now, at least according to reports. They're all dead. They would not hesitate to use nukes. So this is why I have this sort of conundrum with the Israel nuclear situation here. On the one hand, we are told that they stole the nuclear technology. This is part of the reason why Kennedy was assassinated, had to do with the Dimona nuclear power plant. They've always wanted the technology. They got it somewhere along the way. They stole it, and they have nukes, right? Now, if that story is true, then they're crazy. They're a crazy, unhinged society that has nuclear weapons, and they're liable to do just about anything. That makes them dangerous. That makes the Samson option possible. But let me ask you this. First of all, the nuclear, all those videos that we saw of like the houses that were getting destroyed with the nuclear bombs and all that was fiction. That was filmed at Lookout Mountain, the facility in the Hollywood Hills that's now owned by Jared Leto. That was all fake. So, and that was to show you that nukes are real and that they like strip the houses and all that, you know, like that. You know what I'm talking about? The black and white, which just shows like a blast and then the house gets shredded. This is supposed to be the aftermath of a nuclear explosion. You're just like, oh. So that footage is all fake. Undeniably fake, right? So my question is, what else is fake? You know, so there's a lot of, hey, are nukes real? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But if you, my question is this, and I'm not trying to, by the way, I'm not trying to like goad them into doing this, but isn't it about time for the Israelis to use nukes? Because they're getting walloped, right? And at some point, and they're all their top leadership's already dead. All it takes is one guy theoretically to say it's time to do it. Like we're gonna put an end. We're gonna drop one on Tehran, and that's gonna silence all this stuff, right? And I don't want that to happen, of course. I'm not trying to speak it into existence, but let me ask you: if it never happens, then maybe Israel never had nukes. Because if there is one country that will cross any line, it's them. It's Israel. And again, like I said, I'm not trying to taunt them. I'm not trying to speak it into existence. I'm just walking through the logic of this. This is a country who has no problem. They fucking did 9/11, right? Right? They have no problem. There's no line in the sand that the Israelis won't cross. Unless it's just a calculation to put them a little bit further so that they can cross a different line in the sand. So if they're in a position where they're losing, which they are, and it gets much worse, and they haven't used a nuke, it won't be because they're restrained. That I assure you. There's no restraint there. To show restraint would be a weakness. In fact, in the Israeli culture, to be a good person who hands out, gives people money and does nice things, like they have a term for you that it's basically you're a sucker, and they have a term for you and they will make fun of you for doing that. Like you can't be too good. You can't not take the scam. You got to take, with the scams are there, you got to take the scams. If you're somebody who's like, I don't participate in these scams, that's not how we behave here. They have a slur term for you. Meaning it's so common to be a subversive cunt and be involved in just scams throughout, wherever you can get them, that if you're not actively participating in it, they think less of you. Right? So again, I say that to show that there's no cultural restraint that's going to happen there, which makes this really dangerous, which makes this possible that World War III can go nuclear. They have put the entire world in a place where we're holding our breath. It's like I don't know how, I just try to make like some analogies maybe you could understand this. It's like the big drunk lunatic in the bar who's been fucking with everybody has now just pulled out a gun and is waving it around. Everyone goes, whoa, hang on. What the fuck? Half the people are heading for the exits. Some of the people are trying to talk some sense into them. You know how this goes, right? So look, they control, this is how Israel makes a lot of money. Arms trafficking, organ trafficking, human trafficking. This is nothing new culturally to this group. They've been running the slave trade for a long time. You want to talk about the American slave trade and the problems that it created? I asked one question. Who owned the boats? You find the answer to who owned the boats. You find the answer to who controlled the slave trade. I got a hint for you. Israel. Not Israel, the country, because it didn't exist, but them. And now they control almost fully the media. Now, for a long, long time, the narrative had been Jews controlled the media. And it's kind of true. Controlled the media to the extent of what was shown, but didn't control the ownership. That was actually mostly Catholics that were involved in the ownership of the media, but that's changed. And I got into this in my presentation in Acapulco about the 1996 legislation, the telecom deregulation Bill Clinton put in, and what that did is that opened it up so that you'd get these massive conglomerates, these media conglomerates that were buying up everything. It went from 50 major news organizations down to 5 in that. And that's when the Jewish control really happened. Shouldn't be a surprise because who was infiltrating the White House during that time to make sure that all this was happening? Well, Jeffrey Epstein was through Mark Middleton. But of course, Mark Middleton would later wind up hanging from a tree with a noose around his neck and a shotgun blast in his stomach. And they call it suicide, right? So the media control happened during Clinton, and the Israeli groups took control. And now lately they've been on a buying spree. TikTok, Paramount, Skydance, HBO, all this stuff, right? So they're able to control because they're able to control America and the narratives happening inside America because of the control of the media. They also have the Epstein files, not for nothing, but the Epstein files do a really good job of keeping bankers and scientists in line, right? So part of this Greater Israel project is they've got to have the best military that they can. They have the best Air Force, at least on paper, using gifted U.S. jets while, selling the stolen technology to the Chinese, as you do when you're Israeli. So they have a bit of a military. They have compulsory service in the IDF, but it's not a very well-respected fighting force. They tend to shoot women and children mostly, and then dress up in lingerie when they go into the houses that they destroy. They'll go through the women's clothes and put them on, take pictures and do videos and stuff like that. Most moral army in the world, they'll tell you, which is, of course, sheer projection. When anybody tells you, we're the most moral army in the world, by definition, you're killing people. So save it. They also use their APAC and Southern Poverty Law Center lawfare attack dogs, sick them on anybody who's critical of Israel. And by critical, I mean accurate. It'd be one thing if you were like just making up crazy shit about Israel, and the ADL was like, you've got to stop saying all these lies about Israel. That's not what's happening. The things that the ADL goes after you for talking about are all the truths. It's like, you're not going to get busted by the ADL making up crazy shit. Like, they dismiss that. They'll let you keep talking about that if you sound unhinged. It's when you are talking about the truth that they freak out, right? And then, of course, not for nothing, we've got the Mossad going on 60 Minutes with Leslie Stahl talking about we create a global production company And, they're, of course, filled with hubris, as always, which will be their downfall. Moving on, let's talk about the technocracy for Pax Judaica, because this is where it gets very scary. And I'm not going to... Oh, we've got some work to do here. But the path from Tel Aviv to Sand Hill Road is well worn. Right. There has been a pipeline from Israel to Silicon Valley for a long time. And they've been working together since, the Inslaw stuff, the stuff that got the octopus, the Danny Castellero octopus, the computer software that was the back end of all of the judicial scheduling that was happening there. And of course, the Israelis and Silicon Valley have been working well together since the mid-'90s when the Maxwell sisters were there, when they were building their Magellan browser. You remember? It used to be like Netflix or Netscape. Netscape was first with the browser, and then Internet Explorer came out, and then there was Magellan. And I used to use Magellan. I remember that. Of course, now I know that it was created by Isabel Maxwell, Ghislaine's sister. She's got two sisters. They're twins, and they're both awful. I know, surprise. Who bought? By the way, who bought their company? Who bought the Magellan? Oh yeah, Microsoft. Who runs Microsoft? Bill Gates. I wonder how Bill Gates knew Ghislaine Maxwell's sisters back in the night. Oh, never mind. I'm sure it's nothing, guys. Unit 8200 is well respected for their talents, but they have no morals, and thus proving additional stereotypes. But Unit 8200 is like the cyber warfare division of the Israeli military. It's like they have like the Mossad, they have the IDF, they have Amman, and they have Unit 8200, which handles the cyber security and all of that. Now, I'd break that up into two: cybersecurity defensive and cybersecurity offensive. And they use a lot of offensive weaponry in the United States. Of course, we've been watching that for a while now. We've got the technocracy for Pax Judaica is going to be built in America, though. That's the thing. It's slated to run, throughout the Jewish empire. But for this, what they needed guys in Silicon Valley who could be trusted, who were on the inside. And so on the second day of Trump's presentation, he brings Sam Altman and Larry Ellison up on stage and commits $500 billion to them to make AI in America the next frontier. Now, here's the problem. OpenAI, you bring Sam Altman in from OpenAI, and that is a joint venture with Microsoft, Bill Gates, of course. And Sam Altman is a gay Jew who's buying children with his husband, who's probably involved in the murder of one of their employees. And he definitely doesn't want to talk about that, right? So you've got that guy as a co-founder of OpenAI. His partner, another is an Israeli Zionist who's now started a new company, and it's called Safe Superintelligence Inc., with offices in Tel Aviv. Right? So OpenAI is an Israeli firm, essentially, right? You've got an Israeli co-founder. You've got Sam Altman, who has questions about what he did to his sister growing up. She has accused him of raping her multiple times throughout their entire childhood. I don't know anybody who's been accused of raping their sister. But it seems like in this tribe, there's a lot of that shit going on over and over and over and over again. And if I was a coincidence theorist, I'd start connecting some dots if I were you. But again, we'll just keep going down this path, right? Because then we've got Palantir. And they're most definitely going to have a seat at the table in Pax Judaica. How do I know that? Well, because we've got another gay Jewish Zionist, Alex Karp, who is running Palantir. And for those of you who don't know where he came from, he used to be in charge of In-Q-Tel, which is the CIA's venture capital firm. And the CIA's venture capital firm, In-Q-Tel, financed Facebook, Google, Palantir. So when I say that these guys have big plans for you, I want you to understand that Alex Karp is out of his mind on drugs. You can watch his frantic, I don't know what, interviews where he's standing on the chair and he's sitting on the chair and he's jumping and he's zooted out of his mind on drugs, which is your right to be. And I'm strangely fine with that. Just as long as you're not in charge of fucking Palantir. You cannot give the guy who's blowing 8 balls in backstage, you cannot put that guy in charge of the most dangerous technology in the world. Or his partner, Peter Thiel. Holy fucking shit. I mean, he's his partner. So we've got a problem. The people who are in charge of the machines are the most dangerous people you've ever met in your entire life. And they have a vision of the future that runs through Israel. Okay, so you can be dismissive of it if you'd like. But when Palantir, who gets 97% of their business from the Department of Defense, is responsible for running the kill chain in Gaza using their Lavender software to give a social credit score to buildings and deciding to kill 100 people in a building in order to get one terrorist who may be hiding in the basement, those decisions are being outsourced to computers. And those computers are being programmed by the worst people in the world. From the Alex Karps and Peter Thiels. And how they view humanity is much different than we do. It doesn't stop with these companies, though. It's going further than that. There's a company called Wiz, an Israeli cloud computing firm. It was bought by Google recently for $32 billion. The co-founders, there's 4 of them. The co-founders of Wiz, all of them, Unit 8200. All of them. And what are they in charge of? Cybersecurity. The fox is guarding the henhouse. Everybody. It goes more than, there's more. Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto Networks got to be based in Palo Alto, right? It's got to be Silicon Valley. It's started by Unit 8200. So don't make these assumptions that the companies have to be in Israel for them to be Israeli firms. No. We've got Palo Alto Networks is Israeli, right? Now these, and what they did, they went out and bought a company called CyberArk, which was started by a group of guys from Unit 8200 as well. They bought it for $25 billion. So now you've got Palo Alto Networks, CyberArk, and Wiz. All 3 of these companies are now the backbone of the internet for cybersecurity, and they're all Israeli founders. Okay. Unit 8200 has almost 1,000 alumni working in tech inside the United States, and 25% of them work for Microsoft. Okay. Surveillance is the end goal here. Okay. If you want to work backwards from like, hey, where are we going? And then I'll be able to get my bearings and figure out how to navigate from here. We're going to a world of total surveillance. Just like Gaza. Well, Gaza was the original 15-minute city. You know, walled off, under constant surveillance, checkpoints to get in and out. Now, that might be a bit extreme, right? To build a wall around everybody in every city, but you don't have to do that. We've talked about this plenty of times. The 15-minute city isn't, there's not going to be a physical wall that prevents you from going 16 minutes. It's just that all of your digital life will be turned off. Maybe your money doesn't work, your IDs don't work, whatever. It just kind of keeps you penned in, right? And so if you know that surveillance is the ultimate goal for this, then you have to Ask what these computer systems are doing. What are they watching right now? What's the point of them right now? Well, I'll tell you, it's predictive behavior. They want to monitor populations at scale, which you can do using AI and Palantir. And they want to assign scores to people. This isn't my speculation about what they want to do. They write about this. This is in their writings. They want this. And the censorship ramps up. That's coming. Well, hell, that's already here. If you live in Texas and work for the state, you've had to sign a Texas pledge, an anti-BDS pledge. You promise not to be involved in any boycott, divestment, or sanctions against Israel from Texas. You're like, I'm just going to be working as a substitute teacher. Sign the fucking thing or you're out. We need everybody. So why does everybody have to sign a document saying that they're not going to say bad things about this country? Is that country doing bad things? Oh, yeah. Well, then why can't we say it? Well, because if you say it, then, everybody will then notice. And if everybody notices, then we won't be viewed as most trusted ally in the region. And of course, we need to keep this gigantic scam going because we have infiltrated your country. We have infiltrated your country, and we have a plan for it. What is that plan? A digital panopticon, right? Once the framework is in place, then they will use the AI to basically turn you off for criticizing them. And they have broken it down into a couple different sections that they intend to do. Banking, communication, social media, biometrics, travel, and taxes, okay? This is going to be fed, all the information that you generate, your banking, your communication, your social media, anytime you travel, the taxes that you've paid, and anything biometrics. You're scanning your face at TSA to get on the plane or clear customs or whatever you're having to do, all these things that are thrown up. By the way, they're all optional. Opt out of them. I always do. Make them earn it. They'll get your face eventually, but make them fucking work for it. You know what I mean? Don't give it to them. Make them have to, have to come capture you. That's the way I see it. But all your information is going to be fed into a profile, a digital twin, basically, of you, of each person, really. And then this data will be given to the state so that a UBI can be calculated to match you. So it's not so much that everybody gets $1,500 a month UBI. The UBI will vary. And the factors that will determine the variance will be your banking, communication, social media, biometrics, travel, and taxes. Have you been a good citizen? Are you criticizing your government on social media? It doesn't even necessarily have to be Israel. If you're criticizing Israel, we're definitely going to turn off your social credit system, right? So you can see how this plays out. And it'd be one thing if you were just like, well, maybe not. But they have the firms in place to do all this. And the World Economic Forum has connections to all these AI technocrats. So, they want global governance through a magnanimous artificial intelligence. Ultimately, that's the goal of a lot of these people. Not everybody, because ultimately there's ego involved, and if you want to be the president, you don't want to outsource that to some computer, right? So there's always going to be a desire for people to be the boss, to physically be the boss, but the direction of outsourcing the voting, the legislating, the decision-making process, a lot of this is already being talked about. With how do we bring AI in so that these politicians are so corrupt and they're such scumbags and they're all pedophiles, and what if we just got rid of all of them? And everyone goes, yeah, fuck yeah, that sounds great. Because what is anarchy? Anarchy doesn't mean no rules. It means no ruler, right? So we're going to get rid of all these rulers. Does that sound good? Sounds good to me. But I have a question. What are you going to replace them with? Well, we're going to replace them with this AI. Well, then you know what? That's not a solution either. That's just a different set of problems. So yeah, you got rid of the dirty, corrupted, demented pedophiles in office who were making decisions, operating against their own self-interest in order to stay alive and stay out of prison. And now you think you're going to fix that with a computer? Who programmed the computer? Same scumbags. You know what I mean? So I don't know that this is going to. I don't know that this is going to be the future that everybody is demanding. Right? I get it. You can make a very good case for getting rid of just about every politician. But it's not that politics turns you into a pedophile. It's that the types of people who go into politics are the types that are attracted to control. So it's always going to draw the worst types of people. You know, the good guy that you're like, man, I wish you were president, because things would, at least things would be fair and things would be. That person doesn't want the job. The only people that want these sorts of jobs are narcissistic sociopaths who are given everything that they could possibly want by being in a position of power with the state. My fear, though, is much deeper if Pax Judaica is, in fact, to come into or to stay in power in the aftermath of this war. Because we have heard about no-hide laws, and they have big plans for these laws. There's 7 of them. Prohibition against idolatry, blasphemy, murder, adultery, theft, eating animals, and establishing courts of justice. So no-hide laws are, if nothing else, just a list of hypocritical laws that just about every Jew that you know is comfortable breaking. Now, the Goyim have to follow the laws, or else they're done away with. But this is they think all humans are bound by this law. This is Chabad Lubavitch who's pushing for this. This is the rules for thee, but not for me. This is what happens when you let high-ranking Jewish monkey-brain savages use this as an excuse to start another genocide. They're like the ones that they started in the Soviet Union, which killed 50 million people during the Bolshevik Revolution. Who ran that? The Jews were running that. Or the Holodomor in Ukraine by Stalin, and the Jews ran that as well, which killed upwards of 10 million people. So where are we going? What do we have going on in the Middle East right now? Well, we have the Strait of Hormuz essentially shut down for anybody who doesn't pay in yuan. And what happens now, we all know about the oil that comes in and out of there. But what most people don't recognize is how much fertilizer comes from that region as well, just in time for planting season, or not in time for planting season, if you know what I mean. So extrapolating out a couple of years from where we are right now, if this war is to continue, and there's no reason to think it won't, and as of the recording of this, I think we're about 3 weeks into it, you have the makings of a potential famine that could happen. There's desal plants all around the Middle East, and these countries get the majority of their clean drinking water through desalinization of seawater. And those plants are getting targeted. If you knock those out and they have no clean water, and then you have fertilizer that can't leave the Persian Gulf because it can't get out on ships, then you've missed planting season. And I'm no farmer, but I'm pretty sure you need to be on with planting season. And if you don't, you're not going to have any food next year. So I have big fears about this as well. Right. But here is the gigantic, this has been a bit of a heavy episode, right? Because if we're to go in this direction, it's unrecognizable from where we are now. But here is the caveat that I want to make sure that we wrap up with. None of this is going to matter if Iran continues to pummel Israel. One thing is becoming pretty obvious. The controlled demolition of the American empire is happening. It's happening. Jeff and I talked about it 6 years ago in our book. We laid out some triggers that we thought, obviously World War III, but you don't know how that's going to play out. These ideas, the Greater Israel Project and World War III, these are conceptualized during peace times when things are very different. And the idea of we'll just push into this country and knock on the door of this one and, flip the government of this neighboring country and they'll allow us to... You're making these calculations during peace, that's one thing. When your country is on fire, which Israel is right now, you have to prioritize. You can have a 10-step plan to global enslavement. You're on step 2 right now. Survive. Right? So I don't care what steps 3, 4, 5, I don't care what the rest of them. I don't care if no-hide laws are number 8 on this list. We're not even going to get there. Hopefully. The problem is, though, in order to not get there, you're going to have the American empire out of the region, and you're going to have Israel in smoldering flames. And the problem with both of those situations is that when you back a dangerous animal into a corner, you get very unpredictable results. And the American empire in general, and the Israeli group in particular, are not the types to put their tails between their legs and go home. They tend to be the type that will fight to the death and take everybody else out with them as they're going down. So, look, get to high ground, so to speak, if you can. Stay out of the way of these things if you want to survive Pax Judaica's final betrayal. It's cowardly to run an empire by proxy, but totally on brand for the Israelis. This is the same group that has t-shirts that say, 1 shot, 2 kills, with a picture of a pregnant Palestinian woman with a target on her head. So expect the absolute worst of humanity, but Pax Judaica is here, so you might want to plan accordingly. If you like this episode, you can take the additional step right now of sharing it with your friends and family. Do me a favor, go down and rate the show real quick. Give us 5 stars. Macroaggressions.io is where you can find us. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you again soon.